talking about color and how it can influence your bird's behavior. A lot of the time when talking about enrichment, we start thinking about dogs and cats and how their visual spectrum is very limited in comparison to ourselves. And unfortunately, a lot of that knowledge gets carried over to parrots, where we tend to think, oh, dogs and cats can only see a limited number of colors, birds and other animals must be the same, when that cannot be further from the truth. Parrots, along with a lot of other birds, can see the colors that we see, as well as the whole other spectrum of colors known as UV light. Although researchers are still studying this fact and determining exactly what they can see and how they utilize that spectrum, there's still a lot of information we can take from that to apply to their daily lives to help make them a little bit happier. What we do know of the color spectrum at this point in time is that parrots use it a lot for their daily lives. They can utilize the UV color spectrum in a variety of ways to help tell them whether or not foods are safe and whether or not the bird they're approaching is who they actually think it is. When you're looking at a parrot, most of the time you can't really tell them apart, not from a distance anyways. Their colors tend to be the same, the location of the colors are identical. But when you put the birds under UV light and you actually analyze them, you find that they have drastically different colors when put under the UV spectrum. The way the oils refract off their feathers give them a totally dynamic, unique look that helps them tell each other apart. Similarly, a food that is rotting will display a much different color than a food that is healthy and crisp and fresh and safe to eat. Parrots will use that information and utilize the UV color spectrum to tell them when it's okay to do things, if an animal is okay to approach, and if a food is safe to eat. By keeping that in mind, we can use that information to further their enrichment by providing UV light in their regular everyday lives, so that way they can determine if things are acceptable to be played with and if foods are safe. When it comes to fresh fruits and vegetables, if you serve that food plain, a bird can be less likely to go for it because it doesn't look right. Most modern day windows filter out the majority of UV light. So that means that you do require to actually have an outdoor area for your bird to be able to go in that is enclosed and safe, or a UV spectrum light that is safe for parrots. And you can utilize that light to get them to engage in things in a variety of ways. The most common thing I use my UV light for, aside from the health benefits it has with calcium absorption and things like that, is to get them to eat their vegetables. Mia, who's on my shoulder here, is a very, very picky bird. If her food doesn't look right, isn't the right temperature, she doesn't want to eat it. That's just the way she is. It's probably the way she's always going to be. UV light is a very important thing for her in that fact, because if her vegetables don't look like they're ripe, the UV spectrum isn't there for her to determine that the food is safe to eat, she's not going to eat it. So I have a UV light set up over their little dome that they eat their vegetables in, so that way the vegetables always have the UV light there for her to determine that the food is safe to eat. This can be utilized to help encourage birds to properly eat their vegetables and explore new foods. Additionally, you could also link UV light to aggressive behavior. Outside of the fact that the UV light does provide a lot of benefits for their health and their calcium absorption and all of their minerals and things like that, you could also consider that the color itself could influence their behavior. If we were to find out that perhaps predators uniquely had a certain color to them, and there's a certain person that wears a lotion all the time that happens to give off that color, and you find that this bird is constantly being aggressive towards this person and you can't figure out a reason why, it could be that the UV spectrum is telling them that this person isn't safe. Now, that isn't anything that's been proven yet, it's just something that we could consider as science progresses in the future. Now that we've established that birds can see the regular color spectrum that we see, as well as the UV spectrum, you can implement that into their everyday enrichment. There's a reason why parrot toys come in vibrant, bright colors and not just greens and blues. They come in all these varieties of colors because parrots can see them and it influences their behavior. If a parrot doesn't like a certain color, which they do very often, you will find that they don't want to play with that toy. Implementing different colors and providing a variety of options is a very easy way for you to help determine what your bird likes and doesn't like, and get toys that are the right color that they tend to enjoy. This selective color choice is very prominent when it comes to feeding your birds pellets. All of those really colorful, heavily dyed and processed pellets have a lot of vibrant colors in them, and birds tend to pick and choose which ones they want, and they will leave all of them behind. This can present a problem because now you're wasting a third of a bag because the bird refuses to eat the yellow banana-shaped pellets because it doesn't like the color yellow and doesn't feel like eating it. Or maybe the color yellow pellet is actually giving off a different color in the UV spectrum that is showing them that that food is not healthy to eat. So by providing a uniform colored food and establishing why they don't like that color, making sure UV light is applicable, you could figure out different ways to get your bird to be encouraged to eat those things by the lack or over excessiveness of color that's there. So color is extremely important to birds. Parrots utilize it all the time to determine whether or not things are safe or people are safe and whether or not things can be engaged with. It's very easy for us to implement this color. There's all sorts of artificial lights that we can add in now that have the UV spectrum in them for parrots to use. And that can be a very easy way for your bird to start engaging with toys and can give you something else to consider to provide better enrichment in their lives. If they're not engaging with things, consider that perhaps the lighting in the room might be the cause for the problem. Being able to understand that birds can see this whole spectrum gives us a whole other onslaught of things to consider that we may not have previously thought about. And being able to analyze the situation and decide that it might be par for the cause and give it a try could help resolve a lot of the problems that we have. But that's going to do it for today, so thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you all next time. Bye!